So let's talk about the source of depression. Why are we depressed? We're depressed because our mind is trying to associate pain to the fantasy with which we are comparing our life. Yes? So in reality, there's no depression without elation. There is no such thing as depression without elation. The only reason why we are depressed is because we are comparing our current life to a fantasy, thinking that if our current life were to be like the fantasy, there would be more pleasure than there would be pain. And so our mind is trying to associate pain with the attachment that we have to that pleasure or that fantasy so that we can live in the present. Yeah, because all fantasies are projected into the future, and so our depression turns out to be a remembered past of the moment that we're living in right now. So our mind is trying to associate pain with the fantasy that we are attached to. So how do you get rid of depression? Very simple. Very fucking simple. Obviously, taking consults can help you with the deep intricacies, but very simply said, the moment that you can realize that this fantasy would have a same amount of pleasure as there would be pain, yeah? When there's a perfect equilibrium in your mind, you can see that if your life would be like the fantasy, there would be equal amount of pain and pleasure, is the moment that you begin to equilibrate the perception that you have of the now experience, and you begin to realize how what you perceive as negative is actually equal to positive. There's an equal amount of pleasure as there are pain. And this is when we can begin to understand why Buddha had said the greatest source of suffering is to try to obtain the unobtainable and try to avoid the unavoidable. And what is obtaining the unobtainable? Having a fantasy. Trying to obtain a fantasy. And what is avoiding the unavoidable? Trying to avoid your depression. So when you're trying to avoid being sad or trying to be happy, you're probably going to be miserable. So if you can be completely equilibrated with the now moment, that's when you can have a greater sense of gratitude and significance in your life, because it's not about living a happy life, it's about living a meaningful one. Okay? So break through those illusions and start realizing what life is really about.